I mean, I think specific, what's the consistent thing? The consistency is the lack of consistency. I mean, that's the biggest thing I guess I could circle and say that there it is. The inability to do really anything at a consistent level for the duration of a football game. And still last year, when you found our issues, a lot of times those issues were the inability to do it one more time, to execute one more time. It wasn't, we structure everything from a defensive standpoint. So we're sound, we're simple, it's repeatable, it's adaptable. And that's both within a game and then every subsequent game. So you ultimately get the cumulative reps over and over and over and over again. And so what you see is you see a level of execution that you get excited about. And included in that execution is not just simply the X and O side of things, but the ability to play with effort, the ability to finish plays, the ability to get turnovers, right? But an inability to do that over the duration consistently over 60 minutes. And that's the thing that, great defenses are able to do and good defenses do for stretches and average defenses do it very, quite frankly, on an average basis. And then bad defenses, it becomes kind of the exception when you get those things done. So you fall into one of those categories. So with that, what you're trying to do is just be a more consistent unit. And if you do that, then you have a chance to, have some success. And so certainly we think that we haven't reached our peak in terms of what we can be. And so that's our challenge this spring and obviously going into the fall.
Thanks, Alex. Have a good week.
Sure.
Okay, let's go to Joe Bettner and then Ryan Aber.
Hey, Alex. Lincoln had mentioned you guys expecting big things out of Jeremiah Criddel this spring. I'm curious, just from your own perspective, what the expectation is for him, how he's developed so far through the offseason, and just, kind of being a guy that could, maybe make a big breakthrough in 2021.
Yeah, I think, Jeremiah is one of those guys that one of the, I look back at my entirety of my career and think about guys that made a big jump between year and 1 year or two. And now that may not show up on Saturdays quite yet, but I don't know that there's anybody I've been around that made a bigger jump between that first year and that second year. Really swimming the first year and then second year, all of a sudden you're saying, well, wait a second, if he can make that same jump, now we got one. And so that's the challenge to him. I think he's had a really good offseason, from a physical standpoint, athletic standpoint, those numbers continue to increase. From a mental aptitude standpoint, understands the defense, understands the things he's going to be asked to do. And so there's no reason he can't make that jump. And that's the challenge to me as a position coach. And then obviously for him individually to do those things. And so we're excited we got to get some pads on and all that stuff before we, make full evaluations along the way, and ultimately that progress needs to not take place here over the next 15 practices, but also in fall camp and that. But no, we're excited about it. I mean, the most frustrating thing that you can have as a coach is when guys don't make that progress. When it's teed up for them to make that jump and they fail to take advantage of it. And so he's one of those guys that I think, as we've gone through this thing, is carrying himself a different way, which is a really good thing. And I'll say this from a depth standpoint, this is not just specific to Jeremiah. What we need to do is create the urgency within this unit that it's not just last man standing. Where if I stay at Oklahoma long enough, I'll eventually be the starter. And that's something we've dealt with a little bit around here. And so what it needs to be, if I don't play up to this level, then this is either not the place for me, or this is a role that's not going to find myself playing substantial reps on Saturdays. And so again, not specific to him, but just across the board, looking at this, like the competition level, the urgency of a first year guy, a second year guy, a third year guy's got to look like the clock is ticking, man. So that's one of our challenges for all these guys this spring. So we keep driving both, the high end part of the depth chart, but the young guys and some of those older guys that haven't had as much of a role yet in their careers, that the clock is ticking.
Thanks, Alex.
Sure.
Ryan Aber and then Jason Kersey.
Alex, I wanted to ask you about another guy back there, Justin Harrington. How's he coming along physically? How did he handle that year last year after the injury? And how do you see him fitting in on the back end of this defense?
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about a guy that had a knee injury going back to high school, and then played 2 years of junior college football basically with a tore up knee, and they played at a pretty high level considering. So I think for him, once he gets past, so he's been dealing with this thing for a long time, and now getting healthy, coming off of surgery, still in the knee brace, and then again, all that eventually goes away. But I compare him right now to kind of where Trey Norwood was a year ago, maybe at this time, where you had that, being a defensive back with a knee brace on. There's a reason we don't put those on those guys. But so from an off-season standpoint, he has done a tremendous job. You see the movement. He's a guy we're awfully excited about. Doing some corner work for us right now, which I think could be a real good spot for him. Again, we'll see how the depth ultimately kind of shakes out in the end. He does have position flexibility that way. But no, I think a guy that, I don't think we could ever expect him to be further along in the process than where he's at right now, considering, joining us in the fall and then immediately going into surgery and that he's probably, well ahead with what you could ever hope for. So, and then with that, obviously he's got to get a whole lot better. So no, we're excited about Justin. We are.
Appreciate it, Alex.
Sure.
Jason Kersey and then John Hoover.
Hey, Alex, we saw Billy Bowman listed as a DB. So I guess I'm wondering, did you like beat Dennis in arm wrestling or something for that? But in all seriousness, where do you see him fitting in? And do you think the possibility, is it realistic to think a guy can play both ways like him?
Yeah, so we won that recruiting battle, within these walls, which was an important one for us, honestly. I mean, I think a lot of it just stems from opportunity, a place that we could get him on the field and give him a bunch of work, and felt like, as a guy coming into the mid-year, made some sense that way. And my hope would be that that's where, it ends there in terms of the conversations. But no, Billy has a chance to do a lot of different things, and has done nothing but impress, from a weight room standpoint, from a speed standpoint. Credit goes to that program at Denton Ryan in terms of being prepared when he walks through these doors, both physically and mentally. And that now the challenge is you've gone from I'm faster than everybody, and you a step behind didn't really affect you to, man, if I'm not in a great position early in the down, I may not be able to catch up to. And I don't mean catch up from a speed standpoint. I just mean, you're a step behind or a step late in terms of your reactions. And so, no, we're thrilled that, he's in a position on defense right now, trying him a little bit of nickel right now, kind of the nickel safety kind of role, which I think could be a good one for him, and kind of see where it goes. Obviously, still a young guy that has to, just finish his first college football practice, when he should be a high school senior. So now we're excited about Billy.
Thanks, Alex.
Sure.
John Hoover and then Kerry Murdoch.
Alex, hey, this question might be a little complex, but just if you could boil down, maybe you coming off of off season in which you didn't really have contact with the players, and then you go through 2020, the season such as it was. What are your goals for this spring? What do you as a coach want to accomplish with your defense?
Well, I appreciate the question, because this is one that as a defensive staff, we talked at length about really in the last couple of weeks, because you're right. We just had a case study in, well, we've always had spring football. So why do you do spring? Well, we just finished a year where we didn't have that. What did we lose? Was it the competition within position groups? And you look back on it and you say, well, we found a way to have a depth chart. So maybe that's, even though maybe we sold that in the past, maybe that's not the critical aspect of things, although there's a natural competition in terms of, ones and twos and who's going to be in the depth and all those things. But I don't know if that's the chief thing that you need to get accomplished. What do we lose? Do you lose the mental and physical toughness? You try to simulate that in the off season so much, where it's in lifting and running, but you're not a track team. So you're simulating hard stuff in running drills, for instance. But in the end, does that really simulate what a fourth quarter is like? Well, yes, it simulates it, but that's not what it is. And so I think what we missed was playing the sport, playing the game. I think for us too, you turn everything into theory. And I don't know if we had this conversation in here before, but let's teach a guy to throw a 90-mile-an-hour fastball on Zoom. And I don't know that a baseball coach would do that. And you can make some critiques, and there's not that theory is part of it. There's no doubt about it, But I use the NCAA tournament as an example. If I'm elbow in, I got my eyes on the target, and I do a great job with the follow through. Every single ball is going to go in the basket. Well, reality tells you that theory doesn't always equate to elite execution. You have to play the game. It's the same thing. I want to go putt. Well, I know how to hold a putter, and we could talk about it. And you talk about, but you got to see it go in the hole, and you got to work through those things. And so that constant feedback. So we miss those things. Football's not theory. That's a piece of it. And again, responding when something doesn't go well. I thought that was something that we missed. The weight doesn't have a tendency to conspire against you when you're on a bench press, right? The weight's the weight, and you can adjust it. Your opponent does. There's hard days, there's hard moments, and you got to respond to it in real time and execute at an elite level. And so we miss those things. And so, no, this spring for us, as much as anything, if we're more mentally, physically tough for football teams, specific to the defense on our side, then I think we accomplished our goals that way. If we come out of spring and say there's X number of guys that we feel like if we played a game on April 24th as opposed to a spring game, that we feel comfortable having this long a list of guys that we could put into a game. And that ties into not necessarily, I don't care if they're a 2 on the depth chart or a 3 on the, none of that stuff matters, but what's the list? Is it 12 guys? Is it 14 guys? Is it 18 guys? Whatever it is. And hopefully it's in the neighborhood of 30 guys, whatever it is. And so all those things tie into it. But no, I think, last year provided an opportunity for us to look back on it and really be honest with ourselves. You don't just check the box because, now we're just, it's spring football and this is what you do. But it's a great point. What are you trying? What is the aim? If you came out of spring football and you said this, again, more mentally, physically tough, a team that can finish, specific to our side of the ball. You look at our numbers in the fourth quarter versus the first quarter, it's not good enough. And again, all that ties into how do you finish? You're more mentally and physically tough, and so that's the big one that we keep circling.
Thank you, Alex.
Kerry Murdoch and then Mason Young.
Hey, Alex, I know a lot of your young guys, your Russians, got to see kind of what Ronnie could do and what kind of numbers he could put up with half of a season. How much is that a message to guys like Reggie Grimes and some of these other guys, Jalen coming back, that, there are spots there for guys to be difference makers if they just put in the work?
Yeah, and I think what you see is your rep count doesn't always equate to production. So coach, if I just played 500 more snaps, I would get X number of more sacks. And if you go through the numbers in terms of our defensive front, obviously you got to prepare at an elite level to give yourself a chance to have those reps. But what the message is you can have production from an Isaiah Thomas, from a Nick Benito, from a Ronnie Perkins. You can go across the board. It's not limited to one position. It certainly isn't limited to some good call that Coach Grinch had. And I remind them of that all the time. It's not the call. If you went through all the production that we've had in our defensive front and say, well, when we call this guy makes the play, that's not true. They make the call. In terms of how they perform and execute their technique and fundamental. It also is a message to them that when those guys are gone, look at John Michael Terry is no longer with it. Well, that's 300 snaps last year. Okay, well, who's going to take those 300 snaps? What a great opportunity for someone else. Clayton Smith coming in as a freshman, Brendan Walker. Who's going to take those reps? And it's not necessarily a Nick Benito is going to take 300 more reps. Because the numbers don't suggest that, again, the production equates to just simply having more snaps on the field. In some ways, you actually see a disparity that way, where it's you go the other way, the more snaps that you play. And so, but there's more production for Perion Winfrey. There's more production for Josh Ellison, Jalen. So all those guys, I think the message to them is you can find it within those snaps. I promise you. If you're playing and you're straining and all those things. And so I think what the guys have done a great job of buying into, and obviously, our coaches in the front and Tibbs and Coach Kane is those guys understanding that we're not a one deep. Don't get focused on that. No, it's you can have productive snaps and ultimately we're going to put you in a situation where you can have those.
Okay, we're running low on time. We'll go to Mason Young and then we'll see where we are after that. Mason.
Yeah, Alex, you guys have always talked about sort of having that next man up mentality on your defense with not having Pat for most of the spring. just what kind of challenges does that present in keeping that position group engaged from a leadership standpoint without having one of your captains on the field?
I think it'll be a unique opportunity. And you say next man up, and kind of in the spring, it maybe puts me as a position coach in a different situation than the spring otherwise would be. Well, okay, that first group is okay. We don't have to coach those guys or what have you. They've been playing so many. They got 2,000 snaps under the belt type of thing. But now there's other guys that's got to rise to the occasion. The two becomes a one, and again, not because they're specific twos at this particular point, but a guy that otherwise would go with the twos goes with the ones. A guy that would go with the threes goes with the twos, and so there's just more reps to go around, and it also allows you to cross train guys, because there's a need to cross train guys. Once again, a lot of times with our young guys, we put them in one line just so they can focus on those things. And then once you're not a young guy anymore, you got to be dual trained that way. Because we can't spoon feed you anymore. You've been around, you got the, whether it's cumulative reps in terms of games or just been in the meeting room so many times. So I think it gives us, an opportunity. We got several guys from the secondary a year ago that aren't around anymore. What a great opportunity for the other guys that are here. Extremely excited. I'm going to plug all of our freshmen that are in here right now. It's as good as a group that I've ever been around, and that's let's throw high expectations on some of these guys. Probably not real smart on my part, but I'd also want to challenge those guys. We say that now, and it's talking about it's Trell McCutcheon. We already talked about Billy, Jordan Mukes out of Choctaw, who's Keyshawn Lawrence, who just walked in here, Clayton Smith, and Ethan Downs, Isaiah Coe. I can go on and on and on and on about that group. Seamless is probably not the right word, but I don't think any group in the country walks in a January, especially coming off the year that we had, and really has hit the ground running. And that's been, and I bring that up specific to because we're getting quality reps out of them already day one. With a guy like Pat being out and some other guys dinged up and some of those things, that makes it a lot more enjoyable, that you're not just correcting everything that they do. They're going to screw up because it's their first day, they're a high school senior. A lot of credit goes to them because, Jordan Mukes showed well today, the Latrell McCutcheon as well. So all that stuff gives you an opportunity. And the good thing is thus far they've taken advantage of it.